Hello everyone, welcome back to the next video. In this video I will show you how to integrate Google sign-in. So we will be creating an Android plugin to integrate Google sign-in with Credential Manager in Godot game engine. So Credential Manager is a new thing in native Android development. So if you want to integrate Google sign-in for new apps, you have to use it using Credential Manager. Otherwise, even if you manage to somehow integrate using the old way, your app will be rejected once you go to Google Play Store. So yeah, let's see how to do this. So first, here I am inside the Godot, the Android documentation. If you want, you can open the Godot documentation as well. So I'll just close this unnecessary stuff. So if you want, you can open the Godot documentation as well of creating an Android plugin, but I already have created one cheat sheet which is more helpful to me and makes more sense to my brain. So here is the official Credential Manager documentation. So the first thing what you have to do is just open this API console in new tab. I have already opened it. Make sure you create an Android project. Using Android Studio. It can be an empty views project or a Jetpack Compose project, doesn't really matter. Just create one project, okay, and create a Godot project as well. Just simple Godot project. Then what you have to do is go to project, install Android build template. I have already done that. If you're doing it for the very first time, you might have to download that template and then you will have to install it. Then go to project, export, click add, select Android, and here you will have to give it some package name. So where did it go? So here inside package unique name, give it some package name, a unique name. But typically it would be something like com.yourcompany.name. Your game name or your app name, something like that, because we will be needing this package name. Again, go to this particular console. So here firstly we'll have to create a project. So I'll just click on select a project, new project, and name it whatever you feel like. I'll just keep it the same because this is just a dummy project for me any which ways. Okay, let's just wait till the project is completed. This might take a little bit of time. So I'm not really sure. Okay, so the project was completed, but I don't know why it is not even though the project is okay. So now it is completed. Okay, so the project is completed. Make sure in the drop down you are able to see your project. Then you will have to go to credentials. Okay, this is taking a bit of time. I don't know why. Okay, so here then you will click on create credentials, create on OAuth client ID. Then here you will have to click on configure consent screen. Here I will select external, click create. Here you will have to give some app name. So I'll just give it as my awesome Godot game, and here it requires support email. So I'll just enter my email ID, and here make sure you upload your logo file to upload if you are deploying it to Google Play Store. I'll just remove this, and here also I will just enter my email ID. I'll click on save and continue. And here we can just click on save and continue. Now here comes the interesting part. What Google says is that if you are in the testing phase, which we are currently in, you should add some users, and with that users only you should able to test. But what I have noticed is that even if I don't add users over here, and even if I'm in the testing phase, I'm still able to log in with any Gmail ID. So I'm not really sure. Maybe this is working for me now. Later on it might not work for you. So if you want, you can just click on add users and enter your testing email ID, whichever you will use for testing. but yeah, like I won't add it. It did work for me even though it didn't add. If it doesn't work, I'll come back and add it over here again. So I'll just click on save and continue, and here you can see, yeah, back to dashboard. Then again we have to go. So if you're publishing your app, just click on publish app, and then again you will have to enter all the details which it requires. So I'm not publishing my app to Google Play Store, so I'll just click on credentials. I'll click on create credential, OAuth client ID. I'll select Android. Okay, enter your package name. So this will be your Godot package name, not your Android plugin package name. So I'll just copy this and I'll paste it over here. Now it requires the SHA-1 certificate. So here it has given the command to generate the SHA-1 certificate. So the SHA-1 certificate differs when you are creating a release APK. For now I will just do it for the debug APK which I have, but if you are creating a release APK, make sure you follow this command and use this to create your SHA-1 certificate. So I have written that command somewhere. Again, this is just my practice project, so ignore it for now. Okay, so here I can just run this particular command inside my terminal. I am on a Mac, that's why this is the path for the debug key store, and but if you are on Windows, you will have to change this debug key store path. So just do a Google search. So what I'll do is that I'll just go to my Android project where I have created. So no, I mean you can directly run it in any root terminal. That doesn't make a lot of difference, but yeah, I think I'll just run it over here. And I think like typically your key store would be in this particular path, like this one, dot android/debug.keystore, but I have recently changed it to downloads folder. That's why I have changing it to downloads folder, as like I will show it to you. So here you can see inside my downloads I have this debug.keystore, but for most of you it would be in .android, so don't change it to downloads. Okay, and I'll quickly generate it. So here is my where is it? So here is my SHA-1 certificate. I'll just copy this. Okay, again this is for debug. If you are publishing your app to Google Play Store, if you are creating a release APK, you will again have to update your SHA-1 certificate, otherwise your Google sign-in will not work in production. And I don't need to verify ownership. If I don't know why this is, maybe it is when you are ready to deploy it to Google Play Store. So I'll just ignore this for now and I'll click on create. Okay, so this is created. Now the other issue is, even though we are creating a plugin for Android, this client ID is useless. The documentation says that create a web application type and use that client ID. I don't know why this is like, this does not make any sense to me. Maybe I don't have any proper knowledge, but I'll just paste it somewhere. So even though we are not using it, make sure you paste it somewhere. So next again we'll click on create credential, OAuth client ID. Here we will select web application and keep everything as default. Click create. Now the client ID which we will get is very helpful to us. So hopefully it should create one client ID for us. Okay, so here you can see this is my client ID. I'll copy it and I'll paste it somewhere. Okay, and yeah, that's it for this part. Now if you want, you can go through this documentation, but I will try my best to explain it as much as I can. So here is our Android project, right? So what you will have to do, firstly go to this Android drop down, and here inside your app just right click, new, module, Android library. Name your library whatever you want. I have named it as my library. Change the package name to whatever you want and then click on finish. I already have created this, that's why it is not allowing me to create one more. So you can just click on finish. Now the Gradle sync might take a little bit of time, so be patient. Once everything is completed, you should see a my library or whatever name you have given, a folder like this. So once that is done, firstly you will have to open this build.gradle.kts file. Okay, and here firstly we will have to install this, add this Godot dependency. At the time of recording this video I am using Godot 4.2.2, but if you are watching in future, if you are using higher version of Godot, make sure you use that particular version. You can find this particular version of Godot Android plugin on Maven Central. So yeah, and here you might be saying why I haven't added version, because this is a new thing in Android Studio. You have to write the version in libs.versions.toml, so I'll come back to that later on. And here, as the documentation says, we have to add this credential dependency, credential play services, and this Google ID dependency. So I have added all those: credential dependency, credential play services, and Google ID. Now these 4 dependencies are referenced in libs.versions.toml. So as you can see over here, credentials at the time of me recording it is still in beta, but I think by the time you watch it, it will become stable. So use the stable version, don't use beta, otherwise there might be some bugs. And here for Godot I am using 4.2.2 stable, but again use whatever Godot version you are using. Here I am using our Google ID. Okay, so these 3 are referenced. Now these are referenced over here. So first one is this Android X credential. Now the warning which you are seeing, this is an Android Studio bug. It is saying that use credential play, use this Android X credentials.credential. I am already using it, as you can see. Where is it? Over here. Still it is giving a warning. Maybe it is just an helpful warning, not even a warning. Anyway, so I have added this Android X credentials, I have added this Godot dependency, I have added this Google ID dependency, and this Android X credential play services auth. So you will have to add all these 4 things as well. Then you can just click on sync now. It will download all the here you might see a button called sync now. Click on it, just it will download all the dependencies for you. Okay, once this is done, next step which you have to do is go to your library, go to Kotlin plus Java, and here create a Kotlin file called Godot Android plugin. Firstly I will show you all the imports, because the imports are really confusing. Like there are similar imports for a single, for a same method name there are multiple imports, so you might import the wrong thing. Make sure you firstly copy paste all these imports. Okay, once that is done, here as you can see I have created a class called Godot Android plugin. It extends from Godot plugin. I am also extending lifecycle owner because I want to make use of Kotlin coroutines. So here as you can now here, so firstly this particular code, this is boilerplate code whenever you are extending from lifecycle owner. So make sure you just copy paste this code. Then here we are creating a get Google ID option as well as credential manager. Now if you want, you can refer this documentation. I won't be I'll just explain you. If you want in-depth explanation, just refer this documentation. So here I have created get Google ID option as well as credential manager, and this is my plugin name. So you can name it whatever you feel like, but do remember this name because we will be using this name in lot other places as well. Then here we are overriding get plugin signal, and I have added this particular signal. So whenever I fetch some user related data, I will send it back to Godot side. So if you want, you can use whatever signal you want. If you want to use multiple signals similarly like this, you can add multiple signals as well, and it would be sending string data. So once Godot setup is completed, I am initializing our credential manager, as you can see over here. So here we are initializing our credential manager. Then I have created 2 methods, one is sign in and second is sign out. Okay, so first we will look into sign in. So to generate this for this Google ID option, we require a nouns. I'm not really sure what nouns is, but it is something related to security. Again, you can refer the documentation. So to generate this hash nouns, I have this particular bit of code created just so that it is hashed. Okay, next we are creating our get Google ID option. Now this is very important, this set filter by authorized account false. The documentation says that keep it as true, but yeah, you can keep it as true, but there are a lot of edge cases. So I will explain you why keeping false is a better option. So suppose the user has an Android device in which he has signed in with 5 Google accounts. he has installed your app for the very first time. Once he click on sign in, he will see all the 5 accounts if you have kept it as false. If you have kept it as true, your Google sign in will never work. That's the problem. So suppose I have kept it as false. The user selected an email ID called abc@gmail.com. He signed in, then he signed out. Now suppose if I keep this as false again, so this is false, okay. If he tries to sign in again, he will see those 5 Gmail ID. But suppose if I keep this as true for the second time, okay, for the first time it is false, but for the second time if the user is trying to sign in, this is true, then he will only see abc@gmail.com as the option. He won't see other Gmail ID. So that's the advantage of keeping true. But I don't think like this set filter by authorized account equal to true makes sense when you are doing your own state management of tracking whether the user is signing into our app for the very first time, or whether he's signing into our app subsequent, like second, third or fourth time. So I think like this is unnecessary state management. That's why I'm keeping this as false. And this false option, I think the advantage is that we will be showing all the Google accounts to this particular user. But yeah, you can use whatever makes sense to your own application. Now this is our server client ID. So here, if you remember, so this is our web application client ID, not the Android one. So I'm copying that and I will paste it over here. So you will have to write your own server client ID. Now set auto select enable, I have kept it as true. Set nouns, hash nouns, and building it. Then here we are creating our get credential request. Then we require our coroutine. So I'm using lifecycle scope.launch, and here we are creating our credential manager, and then I'm just calling handle sign in method, which I will show you later on. In case of error, I'm using the same signal, but if you want, you can use some different signal just to differentiate it. I'll come back to this handle sign in method later on. Then I have created a sign out method, and to sign out you just have to use this clear credential state request and pass it your request. Again, this requires coroutine, that's why I'm using lifecycle scope.launch. Now coming back to this handle sign in. So first one is public credential. I think this is for passkey. Again, this tutorial is not about passkeys. Second one is for password credential. I'm not really sure what is a password credential. Maybe it is like sending, like the code mentions like sending ID and password to your server to validate and authenticate. I'm not really sure like what this, like it doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe I'm missing out something. Anyways, the third one is the important part, the Google ID credential. So here I'm checking if it is of type Google ID token credential. That means we are doing it for Google sign in. So here, as you can see, I'm doing Google ID token credentials. Here you will get your Google ID token, and with the help of token credential you can get the ID, which is actually the email. This is the display name and this is the profile picture URL. If you want, you can pass your ID token as well. Now it is up to you to do state management regarding this. Like suppose if I sign in for the very first time, if I close your app completely, and if I try reopen your app for the second time, then you can't show Google sign in button again, right? Because you already have the credential. You should redirect the user to appropriate screen. So you will have to save this credential somewhere, like somewhere safe. So I will leave it up to you. I do have few tutorials on saving data to room database or saving it to key store, and also have data about user preferences data store. So make your own choice. Typically you should store it somewhere safe, because this is very sensitive data. But for now I'm just sending it back to the Godot side. Like as far as I know, credential manager till now does not provide a method which will help us to check whether the user has already signed in or not. That kind of state management you will have to do it by yourself. Again, if I'm wrong, do let me know in the comments. And here for catch exception, like I'm just sending some signal over here as well as over here. Okay, so that's it. Now you will have to open this Android manifest.xml file, and again I have just copy pasted this from the documentation of Godot. Only change which you have to make is this should be your own plugin name. So in case if you forgot, this is your plugin name. Okay, and this should be your own package name. So as you can see, I have entered the wrong package name. So my package name is this, right? So I'll copy this and I'll paste it over here, and this should be the file name whatever you have created. So for me it is Godot Android plugin, so I have written it over here. Then you will have to go to the project drop down, and inside your my library create a folder called export scripts template. I have already created it. First create a file called plugin.cfg. again just copy paste this code, and this should be your own plugin name. Change the description author to whatever you feel like. Then here is our another file. Create another file called export_plugin.gd. again I have copy pasted it from docs. Only thing which you have to be careful is this should be your own plugin name. And there is one more extra thing which we have to add, is called get Android dependencies, because we are adding 3 dependencies. If you remember, extra dependencies, forget about the Godot dependency, but this 3 extra dependency needs to be added over here. So I have added those. So as you can see, this is the Android credentials. Again, make sure you use the same version whatever you are using inside it, inside the libs.versions.toml. So if I come over here, this is for Android X credentials, this is for the Google ID, and this is for credential play services auth. Now there are 2 more dependency. One is the Kotlin X coroutines Android dependency, and second is the lifecycle runtime KTX. Now the reason why I am using this dependency, because at least for Godot 4.2.2 it is still using Kotlin 1.7.0 internally. From what I think for Godot 4.3 it would be upgraded to 1.9.20 I guess, or 1.9.0 something like that. Maybe in that case you might not need this dependency, because these dependencies are bundled with with the Kotlin language itself. But in case if you are getting a crash after excluding this dependency, make sure you add this dependency even for Godot 4.3 or later. I could be right or wrong, I'm not really sure, because I haven't tried Godot 4.3 yet, because it hasn't released yet. So anyways, same thing you will have to write over here as well. So same thing, just copy paste it. Okay, let's see our cheat sheet for once. So I've added this, I've added this, I've added this, I've done this. Okay, then what we have to do is you will have to go to the root of your Android project. I am already in the root of my Android project, not to the root of your Android library. Okay, go to the root of your Android project, and you will have to run this particular command /gradle assemble. I'll quickly run it, and what it basically does is that it will if you go to your Android app, so I'll open one more tab, go to downloads, my camp, Godot Google. So I'm inside my Android app. Go to library, build, outputs, AAR, and here you should see 2 AAR files being generated once the command is successful. In the meantime, I will open my Godot project. So here you can see there are 2 files being created. Okay, now what you have to do on the Godot side is, I'll close this for now. So inside your Godot project you will have to create a folder called add-ons. Inside that create a folder with your plugin name, so be careful over here. Then inside that create a folder called bin, and inside bin you have to create 2 folders, debug and release. Now firstly, inside your my plugin folder you will have to copy these 2 files, export plugin.gd and plugin.cfg, which we had already created over here inside our Android. So just copy paste these 2 files. I have already copy pasted it. So if you see here, you can see now inside your bin you will have to go to debug, and here firstly I will copy this debug file. Okay, but I will have to change the name. So I'll delete the older file which I had, and I'll replace it with whatever is your plugin name -debug.ar. Similarly for release, I'll just copy this name, I'll delete it, and I'll drag and drop this release AR file, and I'll just change this name to whatever is your plugin name -release.ar. Okay, then you will have to go to project, export. You might have already added Android. If you are seeing an error at the bottom, just click on fix import button for now, and here you should check use Gradle build, and here depending on what Android device you are trying to run it on, check that appropriate architecture. If you don't know, select all 4 of this. Okay, then you have to go to project settings, go to plugins and check this particular checkbox. And if you see my UI, I have just taken 2 buttons, sign in and sign out. Now make sure your sign in button resembles to what a Google sign in button is. So I won't be covering that in this video. You can do that particular design on your own. And I have taken one label as well. I have attached one script to this. So this should be your plugin name again in the code. And if you see inside on ready, I am initializing our plugin as well as I am connecting it to our user signal as well. I have attached press listeners plus signals to our code. So if on sign in is pressed, if it is Android plugin, then I am calling the sign in method. If it is sign out, then I am just calling the sign out button and sign out method, sorry. And whenever we get some label, sorry, a signal, I'm just updating the label to that particular data. So there are few other things, like if you are doing this Android plugin setup for the very first time, you also need to go to editor settings. You will have to add your debug key as well as Android SDK path. So typically for Mac OS, the debug key is on this path. And if you are like me doing Wi-Fi for remote debugging, like Wi-Fi for installing your app directly, you also have to check this Wi-Fi for remote debugging. And you also need to add your device like connect via Wi-Fi through Android Studio. I won't go into that. You can check for documentation, or just directly click like directly connect your Android app via USB. And here you can see if you are getting this error like related to Java home, this is the path for Mac. Again, you will have to change the JDK version to whatever you are using, but do go through this particular link as well if you are getting some error related to Java_home. So I'll quickly run my app on my real Android device and come back and show you the output. Okay guys, so there is one quick change which I made, was I changed the orientation from portrait to landscape, from landscape to portrait. If you want to do it, you can just go to export, no export, was it in project settings? Yeah, project settings, Windows. I've changed the width and height, as well as here inside the orientation, if you see, I have changed it to portrait. The reason is because when I click on the sign in button, the credential manager like pops up a model from a bottom model. Okay, so it pops up from the bottom. It looks a little ugly on landscape. That's the only reason why I made it portrait. But if you want, you can keep your game landscape as well, but in that case the user will have to pinch to move that bottom model up. That's the only reason. So I'll quickly show you the output. Okay guys, so here is the output. If now the output would be blurred, sorry about that, because I don't want to reveal my Gmail ID. So I have clicked on the sign in button, and here you can see the pop-up model. I'll just select one email ID from my Google account, and I'll just continue. And in the label you should see all the details, like the email ID, the name, as well as the profile picture. If I want, I can click on sign out as well, but unfortunately for sign out, like we don't really know if the user has signed out as well. If the user is clicking on sign out, and if you have stored the user credentials like the email inside your local storage, you should clear that out as well. If I again click on sign in, it presents me the sign in model. And again, like even though I haven't added any test users in that Google API console, I'm able to use any Google account and try to sign in with it. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.